No one noticed her at first. That was the strange thing. In a room filled with diamonds, silk gowns, and men whose names appeared on skyscrapers, Florence Blackwell stood quietly at her husband's side, holding a small clutch that looked far too simple for the occasion. The chandeliers above cast golden light across the grand ballroom in Manhattan, reflecting off crystal glasses and polished marble floors. Laughter floated through the air, soft, confident, expensive laughter. This was the annual Blackwell Foundation Gala, an invite-only event attended by politicians, CEOs, old money families, and global elites. And yet, whispers had already begun. She's his wife. I thought he'd marry someone more fitting. Is she staff? No, wait, that's her. Florence heard none of it. Or rather, she heard it all and chose not to react. Richard Blackwell, her husband, was the richest man in New York, a self-made billionaire whose investments shaped markets and whose presence alone could silence a room. He wore a tailored black tuxedo and greeted guests with the ease of a man who belonged everywhere. Florence did not, at least not in their eyes. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but modest, no designer label screaming for attention, no diamonds dangling from her ears. Her hair was neatly styled, her posture calm, her expression unreadable. To the guests, she was an anomaly, a question mark, a mistake, and mistakes in their world were discussed freely. If you're enjoying stories like this already, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next is exactly why appearances can be dangerously misleading. Richard was quickly surrounded by familiar faces, old business partners, political allies, investors eager to stay in his good graces. Florence stood slightly behind him, smiling politely as hands reached past her to shake his. One woman in a pale pink gown leaned toward another and whispered, not quite quietly enough, "It's a phase. Men like him always get bored." Another chuckled, probably grateful just to be here. Florence's fingers tightened briefly around her clutch, then relaxed. She had learned long ago that silence, when chosen deliberately, could be more powerful than any defense. Richard glanced at her, a subtle question in his eyes. She met his gaze and nodded gently. She was ready. You see, Florence had spent most of her life being underestimated. She grew up far from ballrooms and billionaires. Her childhood was shaped by books borrowed from libraries, long nights of study, and an unshakable belief that knowledge was a form of freedom no one could take from her. While others measured success by wealth or status, Florence measured it by mastery. Languages had been her first love. She learned them not to impress, but to understand, to listen, to connect, to see the world through different lenses. One language became two. Two became three. By the time she met Richard, she spoke 5 fluently and understood several more. But no one at the gala knew that. To them, she was simply the poor black wife. As the evening progressed, the guests took their seats. Crystal clinked against crystal. Conversations softened to polite murmurs. The host approached the podium to begin the formal program. Speeches followed, predictable, polished, forgettable. Applause came on cue. Then the host smiled and said, "Tonight, we have something special. Mr. Blackwell has requested a brief moment." A ripple of curiosity spread across the room. Richard rose from his seat and walked toward the stage. His voice, calm and confident, filled the ballroom as he spoke about philanthropy, education, and the importance of global connection. Then he paused. "And tonight," he said, "I'd like to invite someone very important to join me." He turned and extended his hand toward Florence. A few brows lifted. A few smirks appeared. Some guests leaned back, arms crossed, already expecting embarrassment. Florence stood. Every step toward the stage felt heavy, not with fear, but with awareness. Hundreds of eyes followed her, some curious, some judgmental, some openly amused. She took Richard's hand and stepped beside him. The host looked uncertain. "Mrs. Blackwell, would you like to say a few words?" A brief silence fell over the room. Florence smiled. "Yes," she said softly into the microphone. "I would." She began in English, clear, composed, unhurried. She spoke about gratitude, about education, about the Foundation's mission. Then, without warning, she shifted. Her voice flowed seamlessly into French. A few had snapped up. She continued, fluid, elegant, then transitioned into Spanish. The murmur stopped. Next came Mandarin. Eyes widened. Forks paused midair. Then Arabic. The room was completely silent now. Florence finished by returning to English, her gaze steady as she scanned the audience. Language, she said calmly, is not about sounding impressive. It's about understanding people. And understanding people is the greatest wealth any of us can have. For a moment, no one moved. Then applause erupted. Not polite applause. Not obligated applause. Real applause. Some guests stood. Others stared, stunned. The women who had whispered earlier avoided eye contact. Men who had dismissed her leaned forward, suddenly eager to know more. Florence stepped back, her heart steady. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't defended herself. She had simply revealed who she was. If this moment surprised you, hit the like button and share this story, because someone out there needs to be reminded that quiet strength always has its moment. After the gala, conversations shifted. People approached Florence, not with pity or curiosity, but with respect. Where did you study? How long have you been learning languages? Would you consider speaking at our international summit? She answered politely, never boasting, never gloating. Richard watched her with a look that held pride, admiration, and something deeper, gratitude. Later that night, as the ballroom emptied and the city lights shimmered outside, Florence stood by the window overlooking New York. She hadn't come to prove anything, but she had reminded everyone, including herself, that value doesn't announce itself loudly. It waits, and when the moment is right, it speaks, clearly, confidently, and in every language necessary. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about resilience, hidden strength, and unexpected triumphs. Follow, comment your thoughts, and share this story with someone who's ever been underestimated, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more Florence Blackwells. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that changes everything.